Okay.
Woohoo!
How you doing tonight, baby?
Oh, doing great.
Hey, folks, we were having a really good conversation backstage, and I thought we'd open up with that because we talked about this. I'm in no hurry tonight, so we're going to get to all elements of tonight's stream, okay? But, we were doing our test stream as we do, and sometimes I include those as members only bonus features with outtakes from the show. And that's the closest thing that we have of outtakes is I do a setup of the camera to see if my lighting's right. I've got my mic plugged in, she is. And we do that over and over. And and I may share that after the stream as just a quick 3-minute video on my members only, like I do. That'll be the third outtakes that we've given as a bonus to tribal members. I appreciate each and every one of you. But we got into talking about, because I was telling her earlier that, I was on Caitlin's stream. I don't know if Caitlin's in yet. She usually finds her way in. I usually find my way into her stream, and Caitlin mentioned Celine Dion. That was her. She said that's her Barbara Streisand. That's her grand lady. And I threw out a few jokes. As you guys know, I occasionally do. Threw out a bunch of April Fool's jokes before getting up. And, but I was just teasing her. And one guy there, what was his name? Christor, was going, boy, Caitlin really hates you, And I told him, and Caitlin told him on her own volition, no, that's just what Caitlin and I do. Caitlin's like a little sister to me, right? And that's the way we always have. You heard me mention my punk ass baby brothers, right? That's an affectionate term, okay? So, and then I was telling that to Kimberly, and Kimberly said, well, I don't understand why you don't like Mariah Carey. Why do you call her Mariah Carey and all of that? And we got into it, and I found myself admitting, as I will admit to when we get into talking about AI tonight and avatar shows. Remember, Michael Boswell has slightly changed my mind on avatar shows, and the reason for that is seen as a Disney ride, and that's not to cut them down, but seen as that kind of event, a special effects event, Captain EO, Pirates of the Caribbean, and you go in and you enjoy that. I think that's fine. I would be more comfortable with avatar shows being done after the passing of artists. Like an Elvis avatar show makes sense to me. ABBA, they're still all alive, although they're retired, so that's an iffy thing, right? So we're going to be talking about tonight, we're going to be talking about, and then I want to get back to this Mariah Carey thing that Kimberly and I were talking about. Tonight we're going to be covering the last 4 years on this channel. February 15th, I didn't make a big announcement or anything, but February 15th of this year, we started season 5 on this channel. And I did a video 4 years ago, or it'll be 4 years ago, come the 19th of this month. All right. So if you go to this video, which I've put up as a channel trailer, okay, and some of you may have watched it. I gave you a heads up. I'd be referring to that channel, to that video, and for several reasons. That video is my biggest video of all time. I've never had what you would call a truly viral video. If you go by what a viral video is officially, that's 1 million views. But I came close to getting 500,000. It's right now at about 391,000. It says 390, but if you click the title, you'll find it's 390,870 something. So it eventually will get to 391,000 views. It was not only my biggest video, but it was the video that brought many of you to this channel. I got well over 2,000 subscriptions on that video alone. That was, and then a similar amount on another video I did, and it's my second most popular video, and that's on why today's music sucks. Now, as a channel trailer right now, you can go to the first one, which is bands who need to retire. Tonight's title of tonight's stream is bands who need to retire like yesterday, now, right now, okay? But we're gonna go over the list I handled in that video, and I've reviewed that video. I haven't seen that video in a couple of years, folks, maybe 3 years, okay? I remember working it. I remember being proud of the video. I remember, for the most part, being spot on. But like I said, I'm going to go over that list of bands who need to retire now. Now, keep in mind, when that video came out, it was 2022. This is prior to technology that has come along. Think about it. I did that video in April of 2022. Fall of 2021, we got Get Back from Peter Jackson, the Beatles, due to new technology. That was amazing. But it had just hit us in between the eyes at that point, right? And then, what was it? That was 2021. Was it 2023? 25, or 2022, I guess, is when Revolver came out. And they perfected that technology, and we got a remix. A lot of people were critical of that remix. My overall sense of it is it was magnificent, and it was time to give that album a more contemporary mix, a thing they couldn't have done without being able to isolate tracks. Along with that technology came along the idea of avatar shows and all of that as a possibility. And so when you look back on this video, rock bands that need to retire, for the most part, looking back on it, I think I was looking forward and catching on to a lot of the stuff that was happening. So we're going to be talking about that and how the history of the channel has gone over there, and then we're going to get into bands that I'm going to cover every band that I covered in that video, and maybe a couple of others with your kind suggestions. And then I'm going to tell you, have I changed my mind since that video? One band I remember, and I was just being ignorant, and that was Styx. I thought they needed to retire. They weren't doing anything. And it was about 6 months later, because I'd lost track of them, And I knew Dennis wasn't with them, so how could they be good? And I later found out, no, they've been putting out kick-ass albums for years now. And so that'll be one band that I changed my mind on. So this will be interesting. It'll be a healing, folks. But before the stream started, Kimberly and I were talking about Mariah Carey, and I was telling her that I thought Mariah Carey had a fine voice. I hear that she's got a great voice, actually, and I can see that she's a pretty woman. But she just doesn't translate to me. And what were you telling me, Kimberly?
Well, if you know her story, I admire how hard she had to work to actually get where she, could make enough money to support herself. She had to go without eating, and that in one song she sings about that story, and that was her journey, and I could relate with that. And all I see is a beautiful voice, a beautiful woman, a great show performer. And what's not to like?
Yeah.
Except I know you're not exactly pop. Pop is not your forte.
Well, she came out at a time, I made room for Whitney Houston. Okay? Whitney Houston was cool to me, bought her first album right away, because I like good pop.
Yeah.
Despite what other content creators seem to think about me regarding pop. They don't know me at all. You guys do, by the way. But, and so when she came along, then we just got a host of female pop singers that were kind of taking the limelight from pop rock artists that I liked, and I saw that as kind of encroaching into my territory. So I may have been a little bit defensive about her even existing. But also, I just didn't care for the songs, and I don't like the fact that for the last few years, she has been trying to, in every single interview, claw her way into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, baby. And
Yeah.
do you see her as a legitimate nominee for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not as it stands today? Please don't give me that argument, but
Well, I was
as
gonna
it should
say-
stand for. Is she a rock artist?
No, she's more pop rockish. Even just strictly pop.
Wouldn't you
But-
say rather than pop rockish? Although she's got a couple of tracks that could claim
I mean,
to
she
that.
can really
Isn't
rock.
she more pop
Hip-hop.
hip hop-ish?
She is pop hip hop.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
yeah. And that's one of the things we'll be going over tonight. We've got a wide palette tonight, folks, because I'm going to be forced to review the 10 deadly sins of rock and roll. I know, I know. But a lot has happened since I streamed on Sunday, and I'm in a reflective mood. For whatever reason, I saw that video, and I went, yeah, what about this video got so many people interested in it? And I got to tell you, what I found in the end is that it was because a lot of you feel the same way. We're getting the same old stuff thrown at us, and especially if you've been around a tick, you might feel like what rock and roll used to represent, like true live music at their concerts, writing an album every 6 months, and even in the 70s, they could get it out in a year and a half at the latest. These days, what? Paul McCartney's first album in 6 years. Of course, he's 84, or will be. He'll be 84 in June, right? So it was hitting a lot of people in the same way. Yeah, there's something wrong with rock and roll. It's like rock and roll became, and I've said this many times, it became like a patient in ICU. And it was being fed intravenously by cold-hearted cash. And the only thing that would supply that cash was the right donor. And the right donor was either the paying public for both their products and their concerts, right, to continue to pay for those things. Unfortunately, we saw a lot of artists quit making product because they found out, thanks to Napster, all right? You know, I've been seeing a lot of younger, they're in their 50s. To me, that's young. Just young pups. Content creators who are making this big deal about monetization on YouTube and what's been going on regarding, being able to show content that you do not own. I've been dead set against that. That's not content creating. Yeah, you know, you guys got, so many of you right now have got badges out there. See those blue badges, folks? Those are people who have been deputized as tribal marshals because we keep the riffraff out of here, right? And they have a lot to say. But a lot of people over on other channels are, it's like they believe in the freebie. I want to make it clear. Napster was the beginning of the change that would eventually bring us to where we are now. Now, I don't care if you downloaded from Napster in the past or not, but let's call some shade a tree, okay? If we downloaded Napster files, we didn't own those. And the only way you could get that music before was to buy the band's product. And they hid behind this thing as sharing. All right. And they also hid behind the fact that it was always okay for you to make copies of music. Nobody came after you anyway, and give them to your friends because, say, they didn't have enough to buy the album. Or they just weren't going to buy the album, but you knew if you gave them a taped copy of it, they might. Okay? So that's what they hide about when they talk about Napster back in the day, right? But that, and you might even make tapes for 2, 3, 4, 5, even 10 friends. No, this was sharing with millions of people. And this circumvented need, and since it was digital, it sounded about as good as any other digital release you were going to get at that time, right? Just slightly maybe under a brand new CD, but not enough for most listeners to even pick up on. High quality recordings, free of charge, and nobody got what they deserved. The people who wrote those songs spent months in the studio recording them, spending years, like Kimberly was talking about. Mariah Carey was on the road, and I was telling her, yeah, so is every other musician, practically starving before, getting a contract, securing a contract, and getting her first major hit or major selling album. Well, all of that goes in. That's what you call investing. Okay? You invest your time hoping it'll pay off. And I don't care if Metallica had $100 million each. Every one of them was worth $100 million just because they were ultra rich people. That doesn't give us a right to steal from them. I've always been that way. Okay? You call an ace an ace. All right? If you don't own something and you try and get it free, that's pretty much theft. If you go to a point of downloading something you don't own and it's copyrighted, especially if you put it on your channel, whether it's a video or music, I'm not for that. That's why I don't do that on this channel, right? Now, every content creator has to make up their own minds about what they're going to do in regard to that. Okay? Are they going, because I'm telling you right now, this new, who is it that's on, Joseph Blue, he always accesses Genesis through AI to ask it questions. I've used it from time to time to get a general layout, and I'll get enough information and go find an article from that question, right? But Genesis is also the progenitor, the guts of what we call the YouTube algo dragon, rhythm. And what it does is it susses out, and it's demonetizing a lot of channels these days. And I don't want that to happen to this channel. Never have. And besides, I don't own that music. So I don't show you videos of the Beatles playing on the rooftop of Abbey Road. I don't give you clips of music from albums I own or anything like that, because I have a wide audience and that would be cheating for me. All right? So keep all of that in mind as we go through tonight. What's the other thing I wanted to cover as we get going? Well, before we get going with the main portion of the view, that'll give you a nice taste of what we're going to be talking about. On the last stream, we had all kinds of technical difficulties, and it accidentally wound up to be a very good Sunday night for me, because both streams got over 1,200 views. So for the both streams, and one of the streams says 20 minutes, it went south by 10 minutes. Can you believe over 1,200 people even bothered to look at that? It was a very weird night and everything happening. And I didn't get a chance to do my usual shout outs for those who give us super thanks. I always do that. On my next stream, so I'm going to give you the super thanks that were given on Sunday and last Wednesday, because none of them got their shout outs. And I want to thank each and every one of you for supporting the channel. Rockin' Robin Bird swung a deuce hammer. Michael Boswell, another deuce hammer. That's $2, folks. Ben Scheidecker, a $5 super thanks. My buddy Royce from the Four Horsemen sent in a $10 super thanks. Michael Boswell was in a second time for a $2 super thanks. A third time for another $2 super thanks. Deuces Wild, I see you out there. He gave us a $5 super thanks. And the Four Horsemen, my buddy Royce, came in the next time, gave us a $10 super thanks. Or this is going back to the Wednesday. Michael Boswell, no, this is, let's see. No, this is last Sunday's, I believe. Michael Boswell was in again with a $2 super thanks, and then followed that with a $10 super thanks, and followed that with another $10 super thanks. Deuces Wild came in with a $10 super thanks, and Michael Boswell followed that with a $5 super thanks. Ben Scheidecker with a $2 super thanks.
Oh boy.
Sarkon, oh, I love it. You have treated this body well, Captain Kirk. Sarkon came in with a $5 super thanks. Michael Boswell again with a $2 super thanks. And Slide Tech with a $9 super thanks. And from what I'm hearing from my lovely wife...
Royce just came in with a $10 super
Oh, brother, it's good to see you.
Thank you so much, Royce.
Royce has been so busy. And can you read his?
Yes, I can. Royce says, "Hi, tribe. My home away from home. Just getting off work. Still in the parking lot." Aw, that's
Royce,
cool.
I'm glad you made it. By the way, Royce has given me a heads up what he wants to cover on his stream on Sunday. I always stream an hour before, an hour and a half before he starts. I start at 5 p.m. PST on Sundays and Wednesdays, right?
Yeah.
That's Pacific Standard Time. Adjust your local time accordingly. I always have to say that. And then on Sundays, Royce does his stream at 6:30. That gives me about a half hour to 15 minutes, sometimes 7 minutes, to get up and go over there, and I'm on the panel of the Four Horsemen, and he's covering Seeger, like a rock. Turn the page, you know. Oh man, what a great Bob Seger. You know, got a lot to say about that. So a good topic. So Roy should have his thumbnail, if he hasn't already got that up, and go over there and make sure you hit the notification and the thumbs up for the stream, because I'll be on it following whatever I cover on Sunday. I've got a couple of things I might cover. I'm thinking, what could I cover that would kind of go hand in foot with that? But we'll see. We'll see. Sometimes I can't cover hand and foot with Royce, and I'll just cover a different subject. But it'll all be worthwhile for you guys to watch. Then I also wanted to thank each and every one of you that are hyping my videos. The videos are starting to take off again. We went through some dark times there in the winter. The channel always loses views at the latter part of December, all the way through January and halfway through February. And we're crawling out of the winter blues time, and the channel is coming to life. We've hit 47,500 subscribers.
Woo-hoo.
And folks, you could change that tonight. We could go to 47.6 if only 16 of you were to hit that subscribe to the tribe button. So if you've been watching me for a while, you're just watching, it's free of charge. It doesn't cost you anything. And when you hit that notification bell, right, then you become notified of not only these streams and get in here on time and everything. Oh yeah, I want to see that. But you'll also be notified of all my future videos. The videos are doing good because you guys are hyping them. Hyping is so integral. That is a way that you can support this channel without a super thanks, without anything. I mean, it's like giving a thumbs up. That helps with views. So does hyping. All right, it goes on a leaderboard, and if it gets enough votes in hyping, it'll get even more views, and I've noticed a change. Also, the channel has hit well over now 13.5 million views, and we've done that in what? A year and a month and a half? Something like that, or 4 years and a month and a half, I should say. All right, so I want to tell you all, I appreciate it so much. Now, many are still complaining that they're being unsubscribed. I'm still seeing that despite the influx of new subscribers. It's just we've gotten so many new subscribers that it's outweighed the amount that we're still losing. And it looks like you are being unsubscribed indiscriminately. And if so, I encourage each and every one of you, please check your subscription, that you're still subscribed, and check your notifications, because I get calls from you guys all the time. I'm not being notified. Then they go over and they check, oh, I wasn't unsubscribed, but my notifications have been turned off, and I know damn well I didn't do that. And other people saying, oh, not only my notifications, but I've been unsubscribed, and I know damn well I didn't do that. So keep all of that in mind. And now, before we get into the main event here, this is a good workup to the main event, okay? Bands who need to retire now. I want to direct your attention to a set of 9 polls, my last 9 current polls that I've been doing. And we've gotten, 9 polls. I think we're close to 12,000, over 12,000 votes on these sets of polls. So lots of interest in these. And we covered a few of them, but since I last streamed, let's see, 8, 9, 10, these are unnumbered. So which one? Or 10. Okay. All right. So I started these polls 9 days ago, and I didn't get to cover the ones that have happened since my last stream and the day of my last stream as well. All right. 9 days ago, we're talking about band eras. Now, keep this in mind. The reason I'm going through this now, we're going to talk about bands that need to just give it up, retire now. You don't have, or are there options? We're going to talk about that as well. But to retire now or to semi-retire will be an option tonight, okay? Keep that in mind as well, all right? But think of these eras and these bands, whether we're going to talk, some of these bands we'll be talking about tonight. Some aren't up for discussion a whole lot, all right? But think about the era that they were most popular for and what they offered to us with product, energy, originality, and the amount of product that they would offer us. Some of these bands, doing 2 albums a year, right? And 4 singles, which is another 8 songs. That's an impossibility today, okay? But they managed to do it. All right, so the first of these was which era of Fleetwood Mac was your favorite era of your favorite Fleetwood Mac era? And the clear winner above them all was the Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks era. Now, we've already discussed this before, so I'm not going to get into discussing the ones that didn't make it. If you're curious about the eras that didn't make it, go over to my post page and you can follow along right now. Now, 8 days ago, I followed that up with which era of the Eagles was your favorite Eagles era? Far outweighing any other era was the Glenn Frey, Don Henley, Don Felder, Joe Walsh, and Timothy B. Schmidt lineup, even though that lineup was only responsible for 2 albums. One was so post-comeback that it almost doesn't count, and the other was their very last album. But that's the most popular era for them. So what did that lineup do that other lineups who were responsible for more material do? They toured their asses off. Keep that in mind. All right, which era of the Eagles? We got that one. Okay, which era of the Yardbirds was your favorite era? And this one I divided up by guitar player. So this was more of a popularity contest. And the one that finally won out, believe it or not, was when Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page were both in at the same time. And I think most of you voted for that because at least you got 2 out of the 3 guitar gods that came from that band, right? Then we got into which era of Deep Purple was your favorite era. And the winner of that was Mark II, as per usual. with over 85% of the vote, right? Early on, Mark III got a ton of votes and was for a while even leading Mark II. And it wound up with a paltry 8%, but that got it into second place. So, and of course, that's with Gillan, Blackmore, Glover, Lord, and Pace. And I brought up that Pace is the only one that's been in every iteration of Deep Purple. All right, so which era of the Rolling Stones was your favorite? And I was slightly disappointed with this, but I wasn't. It wasn't like I wasn't expecting it. The Mick Taylor era was voted most likely, and I think a lot of younger fans came in around that era. And in second place was the Brian Jones era, which would have been my favorite era. So I lost out on that particular poll. But at the same time, it can be said the Stones were really on their own with Mick Taylor and not just shadowing the Beatles, rewriting Beatles stories or songs, or rewriting Beatle albums, Her Satanic Majesty's Evil Son of a Bitch in Service, or whatever that was called, right? But I loved, when I think of their basic Brian Jones, man, I was surprised. But he did get second place. Now, which of these eras for the prog rock band Yes was your favorite? And the one that got it was the early 80s. I was glad to see this with Bill Bruford, Rick Wakeman lineup, and that's around the Fragile roundabout era. I used that. And that's my favorite. I love Alan White as a drummer, but Bill Bruford had more swing, and I felt like he was more of a prog drummer. Alan White came in, and it slightly changed their sound, not horribly, badly, or anything like that, but I always missed Bill Bruford. And then I talked about Paul McCartney eras. Which Paul McCartney and Wings era was your favorite? And the one that finally beat out early on, it was the Denny Lane, McCulloch, Britain era that was leading. But later on, finally, people woke up. Oh, wait a minute! I think they were voting that because they know Band on the Run came out in '73. Maybe they toured it, and that's not what happened at all, right? So I didn't even include the Band on the Run era because there were only 3 Wings. I wanted the full 5-man lineup for this. And the one that won it was Paul and Linda McCartney, Denny Lane, Jimmy McCulloch, and Joe English. And that was no surprise to me at all. They were probably the best performing group. Well, not even performing. They were just great. There's no doubt about it. But I always liked the snap and attack and energy of Jeff Britton on drums on the few tracks he was on. And then finally, second to finally, which era of King Crimson was your favorite? And by far, the original lineup with Greg Lake and Ian MacDonald. Second place was the Lark's Tongue lineup, okay, which included Wetton, all right, and Bill Bruford, okay. And I like that lineup. But I got to go with the original lineup. They couldn't defeat that. That was all on its own. If they had just stayed with that lineup for a long time, I may have followed them as closely as I followed Yes. And then finally, which era of the Beatles was your favorite Beatles era? All right, and the one that has won is the late Beatles, 41% of you. But with 30% in second place, was mid-Beatle period with Help Through Revolver. Third place, psychedelic Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour, Yellow Submarine. And in the end, early Beatles, and I can understand that, right? They had a great album, their first great album. Their second one defined their sound more, but was a lot of more of the same. But then came A Hard Day's Night, which is their first masterpiece, but then there's a softening in quality, I feel a little bit. It's not one of my favorite Beatle albums, with Beatles for Sale. Then you get into Help, and if I had to vote for any, it depends on what mood I'm in. Probably my my safest place to go with the Beatles. You know, I'm in no particular mood. It doesn't have to be late, early, or whatever. It's that mid period. They were mature, writing mature lyrics by that time, and yet there was enough of that four-man band sound that they still had to most of their songs with, you know, of course, exceptions, especially on Revolver. You've got Eleanor Rigby, and of course, John's wonderful She Said, and Tomorrow Never Knows. Those were, whoa, out there. But there was still a lot of mid-Beatle terms, and I've said Help before. If it wasn't for the covers, it would be a masterpiece, and the best of Help matches up with the best of Revolver, which matches up real well with the best of Help matches up with Rubber Soul, which matches up with Revolver, and you got a 3-album run there. That may be one of the best 3-album runs of any band from the 60s. You guys let me know if you agree with that. All right, so that gets us up to date, and we're going to go back to this idea about this video that I did 4 years ago and what has been happening with the channel. Now, when I talk about this channel, first of all, I just was going to try and do a YouTube channel. I'm into tech. I thought I'd do, people say I teach pretty good. Maybe I could do tutorials on how to make videos, which I barely knew how to do myself. So the audacity of me. And for my first 3 months, I couldn't break 100 subscribers to save my life. And then I did something off the wall. I wasn't changing the channel at all, but I did a video on Peter Jackson's Get Back film that was available at the time and still is on Disney Plus, right? Because I'd always been a Beatle fan, and I'm a musician. My whole life is around being in bands, writing songs, singing them, writing the harmonies for them, the bass line, the guitar. Okay, if the guy was a much better guitarist than me, I might let him have a go at it. But that was my whole thing. You would have thought I would have done a rock channel right off the bat. But when I did that one, it was the very first video I ever got over 1,000 views. That was like a Hail Mary. I hadn't come close to that before. And so I followed that up about 2 weeks later with a part 2, and then in January with a part 3. And then I started covering the Beatles' recording efforts as seen through Jeff Emmerich's eyes. I did about 5 or 6 of those. And by the time February 15th came, I now had a smattering of rock things, and I decided to cover Led Zeppelin. And from that point, February 15th, I decided you didn't see any more of the old channel's complexions on this channel. Now, knowing that, when I first started it, I go, yeah, give me a chance to talk about rock and roll. And as I made, you know, I'd keep up with current stories. I would look at the situation of rock, looking at bands I'd kind of lost touch with and everything. And I'd always felt like the better days of rock and roll are past them. So I'm going, what do I do with it? Well, let's talk about the glory of classic rock. And so I've always kind of made my emphasis on talking about classic rock. But then as I started covering more current stories, it became apparent to me that there was a lot of things wrong with the current situation of the music industry in general, and more specifically, the rock and roll music industry in general, starting with Napster. Remember how I started this off, but that wasn't the last dragon to slay, okay? It certainly was the instigator of making bands not that hot to record new material, because we don't make any money on the albums, Michael. That's why we don't do it. If I asked any of them, and they felt like they wanted to answer me, right? So the more I covered current stories and looking at the situation, slowly it became unveiled to me that there was almost a mission to this channel. And I could see it unfolding by 2023, 2024. I had pretty much done it, but I had never made a major announcement. I have on this stream a couple of times, and I have a mission statement for this channel. I want this channel to be a procurer of the elements, that's stories, albums, music, bands of classic rock specifically, but going back to the 50s and even the 20s and earlier, if you consider, because we cover the blues every once in a while here, because no blues, no rock and roll, right? Right up to about 2005. And I've even extended it to cover the great bands that are still coming out despite the fact that rock and roll is no longer the predominant style of music that's listened to your average audience, which also includes a majority of that audience being quite younger. And so I want this channel to be a place where not only people of my age or in their 50s or 40s or even 30s, I'd like this channel to eventually attract a younger audience. I want it to represent what was so great about classic rock, what made it great, what made it the predominant style of music for 50 years on this planet, half a freaking century. And I also want it to be something, a channel that more accurately portrays that, but at the same time, a channel that has an opinion on what's hurting rock and roll today. Like I said in at the outset of this stream, I've seen, and in that video I mentioned it, that rock and roll is like a patient in ICU, in critical condition, being fed intravenously to keep them alive, and that is the pumping of cash. All right? So I've come up with a list of the 10 deadly sins against rock and roll. These things exist, and it's killing rock and roll right and left, and then we'll get into the bands I think who should just snuff it, or who I thought should just snuff it, and should they still? Because after 4 years on this channel, my opinion has changed a bit. Like I said, number one on the 10 deadliest sins against rock and roll is AI. Now, I've said I love what they did with Peter Jackson's film, and that was a rudimentary style of AI, robotic AI, and I love what they did with the remix of Revolver, but once again, that's robotic AI, but now we're teaching the thing, and I know this has been coming up even before this, but now it's hitting the music industry in the last few years, and they've taught these damned robots to write songs, to emulate voices, to steal and study how Aerosmith got their sound and their approach to songs, so that if you voice into a computer, make me an Aerosmith sounding song about me and Kimberly going to the park, damn thing would whip it up in less than 30 seconds. I don't like that. I think that's wrong. That's why I've been against AI avatar shows and everything, but I have made a concession. Michael brought up a lot of good points that, hey, you know, for a special ride, trip down memory lane, that's okay. But I don't want it to take the place of live music. I think that's one of those things that rock and roll did so well, and those who knew rock and roll and who made it as big as it was, that's you and me, folks. That's the fans. They loved the idea that on any given night, you might see a drunken Jimmy Page slur his way into a corner, and you just kind of, half the fun was watching him try to dig his way out of the corner. I've said that many times, haven't I? And the many other things. Wow, you know, Michael Love was way down in the mix tonight. You know, you could barely hear him, but I got to tell you, the backing vocals sounded blank. Yeah, you see, you find something good about it, right? You didn't expect perfection, and in the instances when you got near perfection, your minds were blown. And the reason that we got near perfection, that every single band alive was trying to up their game when they had a bad show. We can't let that happen, right? Number 2, lip syncing and backing tracks. Okay, one of the bands we'll be talking about tonight, just one of them, was and Kiss as well, but the Eagles and Don Henley lip syncing. Right? We talked about Neil Schon playing to a backing track. He was just busted not long ago, right? And Arnel Pineda just did a recent interview where he said that he didn't want to do this current tour, that he emailed the band and they never got back to him. He's in the middle of his a divorce, maybe, and there's allegations of domestic abuse. So he's going through that, and plus his voice sucks, right? And so this guy, you guys think that's really Journey? Think about this. The replacement vocalist sends an email and he's a hire-on. Management, which is the rest of the band, Neil, didn't get back to him. That's how they handled it. He's an employee. Is that really Journey, right? Okay, so I have concerns with that. I have concerns with another portion, part of live music, and that's the high concert ticket prices. They've gone completely out of reach for many of the original fans. And you know what I was thinking, Kimberly? What would be cool? Why can't Ticketmaster or whoever is going to eventually be the top cheese on this, if they manage to break up Ticketmaster and Live Nation one of these days. But why can't Ticketmaster be more like International House of Pancakes? Remember when I turned, was it, 55?
Yeah.
And I got a menu for seniors.
Oh, that's right. You did get a senior menu and a little bit of a discount.
Yeah. What do you guys think of that as an idea? How about a senior members discount? We put these freaking bands on the map.
That's exactly right. They don't. It's like they don't even recognize that they wouldn't be where they are.
That's right.
Without the fans.
I know.
And the fans started way back when.
Right.
Come on, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not happy with that. Touring, constant touring, but no new material. And constant touring, I should say, with no new material and few or no band members left. I know some of you are thinking, okay, I know who he's going to talk about there, right? And also political preaching at paid events. I'm not trying to shut these artists
captive audiences, yeah.
Right. They're just like me. Yeah. They're just like you, Kimberly. They have a right to talk about their politics, but they're on the job, man. You're on the job. Maybe that's not a good place to talk politics and just get your fucking job done.
That's right.
Right? You're in front of a paid venue, all right? You've got to assume that people are there from all different walks of life and political beliefs. Maybe it's a time to just shut your mouth and let your lyrics speak for you.
Yeah.
Bruce, Roger.
That's right.
Okay? And then residencies. I'm not hot for that. Look, the Eagles have claimed that this will be the last year they tour. At least Don Henley has. Well, he is the Eagles. The Eagle. That's what he should be touring as. The Eagle. Yeah, that'd get a lot of sales. And right after he did that, he added more shows to the Las Vegas Sphere. And then about a week after that, he did it again. And can we really believe them? How long has this tour been going on? I've been covering this tour, never ending, for the history of this freaking channel. Okay, it just won't stop. All right? So, on one hand, they're saying, this is the last time you get to see us. And then next year, no, really, this is the last time you're going to get to see us. And the year follows. No, really, we're not kidding this time. It's a little bit like Chicken Little. Sky is falling. Who's going to believe it? Or the boy who cried wolf. Who's going to believe him? Who believes these guys? Is Don Henley even credible? And especially saying that in an interview with CBS, who didn't have the balls enough to question him about allegations of him lip syncing. It was a puff piece. That's all it was. And he told them what they could cover And then he was given those questions. Oh no, I won't answer that one. You can tell. And it was a nice interview. And a lot of it was worth watching. He is a hero of mine from way back as far as a songwriter, a member of the Eagles, a singer, and a decent drummer, right? I like that whole package. I just don't like, I don't care for the man. I don't care for the man. But I can be a fan of a band with members I don't care for. It's the collective genius and what they can squeeze out. Do I hear any truth in their lyrics? Do I feel inspired by their music? And he definitely comes up with that, right? And then we have rockers you just don't have anymore, which leads to what? Bottlenecking of new talent. And that's why this channel has only mentioned a few latest bands that are making it out there that I see. Yeah, they have a real traditional yet forward looking sound that could carry this on if we were allowed one more stinking miracle. And that miracle is kind of occurring right now, even though rock and roll is not the number one listened to form of music these days like it once was. Do you know? It's still, or it's currently, the fastest growing. So there's a glimmer of hope. And I'm hoping that's what this channel is all about. And then finally, I'm not for censorship. Okay? That doesn't mean anything goes. But I'm not for censorship of rock and roll. Okay? If Roger Waters wants to do an album during the pandemic and scream at Donald Trump all the time, he has a right to do that. I won't buy it because I don't like those kind of overt political messages. I like something a little more subversive where I can test it and see, oh, he's probably talking about this, but he doesn't realize by using this line, it also goes to my line of thinking. That's the way I've always listened to music, right? So I'm not about that. And of course, I'm talking about the N-word or the pussy willow word. Okay, we've covered that before. So keep all of that in mind. This is the stuff we are facing as rock fans, as a generation, if you're close to my generation, and if you are of younger generations, right, then you've got a problem there, okay? Because you've managed to discover rock and roll despite the fact that it's not every kid at school learning it. You were one of the cool kids. You discovered it on your own, or an older brother told you about it, or an uncle, or a dad, parents, whatever. Somebody you met. Maybe you just turned on the wrong radio station and, you heard Money by Pink Floyd and had to get that out. What the hell this is? How come none of the people that I've been listening to for the last 2 or 3 years even sound like this? And a lot of newer folks come in that way. And the reason that they're doing that is we're talking about freaking masterpieces, works of art that belong hanging in a museum, all right? Not just thrown away off to the side. Now, getting back to this idea of AI. On another stream, there was talk of AI and everything, and this one guy gets up, and I know the gentleman, he's going to remain nameless. He occasionally comes over here, and you guys know what I've said about AI, and he got up there and he says, I don't like AI. I hate AI. I can't stand AI. AI sucks. And he kept going on and on and on. And then you listen to him further and he says, oh, well, I do have an AI intro to my show. He's a DJ on a show. And I'm going, well, how very hypocritical of you. Okay? I mean, you can use it here or whatever. I don't believe in using AI to catch up with the Joneses, to make you look like you're one of the big boys. I just don't believe in that. Okay? I believe in content creatorship. I wear that as a badge. I have to do it all on my own. I feel like I have to have something to offer you folks that you don't get from other channels or anything like that. So I don't limp onto opinions. Sometimes I piss you folks off with my opinions, but I always leave the final word to the tribe. My opinion is only my opinion. I've said it a million times if I've said it once. Okay? And what I want this channel to represent is not my opinion. I'm the tribe master. I get to speak first, kind of like how the channel has to do that, right? It's my channel. I have to put out something that you would watch, but then I want your immediate response if you don't agree with me. And I want your immediate response tonight if you don't agree with me on the bands that I covered with this in this video that I'm talking about. And of course, I'm talking about the bands that that I covered in bands who should retire, rock bands who should retire. And again, I'll remind you, if you're just checking in right now to the stream, I have that as the channel trailer. You can access there. And it's the first on my channel page. If you go to my channel page, on my most popular videos, it'll be the first one there too. All right. 390, soon to be 391,000 views on that. And the channel grew extraordinarily fast after I put out that video. So I was looking back on it. I'm in a reflective mood. And I stand by 90% of what I said in that video. And you guys, of course, are invited to watch that at this point, hopefully after the stream, to see what you think of it. But I mentioned bands that I think should retire. I mentioned Styx, Foreigner, CCR, the Doobie Brothers, Fleetwood Mac, Black Sabbath, yes, Genesis, Queen, the Eagles, and Paul McCartney. Now, some of these bands, I mentioned their last incarnation. You know, they may not have been currently touring at that point, but they were threatening to always come back. Black Sabbath at that time. You know, Tony Iommi has always been famous for, well, this is the new Black Sabbath now, right? And so my idea to include them was based on that. And some of these bands, I changed my mind. All of these bands I thought should retire. I didn't include Paul McCartney, but as an 11th, because I covered 10 bands, but as an 11th person, I want to cover him at the end here tonight. Okay? Because I've changed my idea on some of this. For example, Styx. All right? I wasn't aware at the time of their latest albums. I was aware at the time they didn't have Dennis DeYoung. He was their main writer. It was a lot of his material I was a fan of. Not all of it, but for the main part. I loved them as a band. And the bitter fighting between Dennis and the rest of the band just got crazy. And they're out there touring without him in there. And I thought, good Lord, either get back together with Dennis DeYoung and record some new material, you know. And then I found out, why would they? They've been recording new material. I listened to their albums probably about 6 months after I did that video. And I go, they have nothing to freaking apologize for. So carry on, Wayward Styx. That's all I can say. So that's one band I changed my mind on. Foreigner. I mentioned there. You know what? Foreigner's still out there doing the same damn shit they've always done. They haven't changed their tactics and they're still freaking touring. And I was already talking about them touring, becoming a jukebox. And at that time, they had one member left who was responsible for the music that they were touring. And since then, he's left. They brought back Lou Gramm for a short period of time. I guess he's making a show here, a show. That's not good enough. Foreigner needs to go by way of the dinosaur. They're a traveling jukebox. Make room for the rest of the tribute bands that don't have a legal tie to the name Foreigner. It's not fair that you, Foreigner, nothing more than a tribute band, has legal ties to the name when other tribute bands can't be called Foreigner. What do you have that they don't, except for Mick in the background pulling the strings? You're all a bunch of puppets. It's time for you to retire. Go away. We're done. We're tired of you. All right, what do you guys think? Let me know.
Well, Beast LVX says Iommi just donated one of his guitars to the Cancer and Oncology Center in Birmingham.
Wow.
What a guy. That's some big money.
Yeah,
He's
it'll
going
go
to do
for
it
lots.
again, too.
Yeah.
You know, that I was saying that's a great role model. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Giving back.
I wasn't aware of it. I hadn't heard that story. Thanks for sharing, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and he also says, I'd rather see John Anderson and the Band Geeks.
Okay. And we're going to talk about Yes. Yes is in the mix today.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure which I'd rather see, Yes or John Anderson and the Band Geeks. God, since they're both out touring and they won't get together, why can't they just freaking double bill, triple bill with, let Rick Wakeman. All right, we'll just switch to Yes here. They were down lower on the list anyway.
Well,
And then I'm going to talk about Black Sabbath because I'm glad you brought. First of all, since you brought up Tony Iommi, my thoughts on Black Sabbath, and I've already explained that. My problem with them is give it up, and that's because I've always been an original Black Sabbath fan with Ozzy Osbourne at the vocal helm.
I know, me too.
And then when he left, I wasn't even interested in his solo career. I didn't want him as a solo artist. I didn't want Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio. I wanted Ozzy with Black Sabbath. Damn it, that's the way I found him. That's the way, by God, they need to be.
That is Black Sabbath.
Yeah, well, they were kind of like John Paul, George, and Ringo to me.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you can't be changing the band. Yeah. And yet I know many of you disagree with me and think that Ronnie James Dio was even a better singer than Ozzy. And you know what? There may be some truth to that if you're going to talk clinically about Ozzy's vocal capabilities. But Ozzy had a sound all his own, and that's why he was so good.
That's exactly it.
Right. It wasn't because he could out-sing Robert Plant. It was he had a good enough voice that sounded just that bit of different, and I didn't want him taking that voice on a solo career. That belonged to Black Sabbath. Now, Royce, my good buddy who's out there in the audience right now,
yes, he is.
worked on me, hammered on me for years. And I finally gave a listen when it came out because now I was a rock channel. When Patient Number 9 came out, and I was convinced, and I'm now trying to get a hold of every single solo album by Ozzy Osbourne. I've accepted his career. So I am capable of changing my mind. Same thing with Yes. In this video, I said, give it up. Steve Howe is the only guy left. That's not the real Yes. Yes died with Chris Squire, I said.
Oh my goodness.
And if you can't be bothered to have John Anderson sing for you,
Robin
screw
Bird.
you. Hey, Robin.
7-month tribal elder, and she said, I like Dio as a solo artist better.
Right.
And was lucky I saw him in concert, and he put on a great show.
Right.
Woo, that's awesome, Rockin' Robin
Now, see,
Bird.
the reason we featured that, Robin is one of our tribal members, and
Elder.
that's one of the benefits you get, not only just videos dedicated for you, extras, outtakes, things like that, but you get an ability to put out a highlighted message, and we read those right along with the super thanks, don't we, baby?
Yeah, and prayers for Rockin' Robin Bird,
Yeah,
who's having awful headaches. She gets those like migraine headaches that are really bad.
Yeah,
and
we've talked about
we
me.
know about that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've had, Kimberly has, she can tell you horror tales about my headaches.
I know.
And I've kind of, I lived with them from the time I was 8 until about, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's
And
only
then-
been in the last 10 years that they've calmed down.
Yeah, and occasionally, once, twice a year, I'll get a real bad one, but not at all like they used to be, but bad enough to put me on the sidelines.
Yeah.
But they were used to be, Robin, so bad that I had to encase myself in ice and then go in and take a hot bath, as hot as I could, and going back and forth. It was my way of opening the blood vessels, closing them up, opening them, closing, massaging that damned headache away.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a long process. I would get out of that, and I'll tell you, I couldn't move for 3 days. You know, so prayers and thoughts go to you as well. You know who we haven't been seeing?
Michael and Kimberly.
Yeah,
And
James
prayers to you
Storm
both.
Cop, we haven't seen in a while. James, let us know how you're doing if you see this on replay. I'm concerned about you. About ready to send an email.
Absolutely.
About ready to send an email after you, son.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to make sure you're still
We want to know
amongst
everything's
us.
all good with you.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I mean, it was James more than any other person that started this whole Super Thanks thing. I want to thank him for that. By the way, that gets us to yes. I was saying get rid of them, right? Just get
Yep.
rid of them because there's nobody left. My favorite member was always Chris Squire. My favorite drummer was always Bill Bruford. But, and Stephen Howe, I loved him. I loved him. So at that time when I did this video 4 years ago, Give Up the Ghost, guess what? I've changed my mind.
Yep.
Because they came up with, and I listened to the album before that, which was not bad, but Mirror to the Sky came up. I gave it the album of the year, was that 2023. And then one of you just told, Brandon just told me, they've got a new album coming out this summer. What was that? Aurora? Was that it, Brandon, if you're still out there? Aurora? I'm just memorizing and remembering what you said in there. I wasn't aware of that, so I learned that right here on the stream live today, just pre-show. And I'm excited about that. I'm hoping, see, to me, it has a lot to do with new music when I'm going down these bands. New music is critical. It has to be there.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so when we're talking about, yes, they got the new music. Now they're coming out with another one. If it's anywhere near as good as Mirror to the Sky or True by John Anderson and the band Geeks, both albums. One I got at the beginning of the next year, otherwise it would have been in contention for Album of the Year against Mirror to the Sky, right? But why can't these idiots get together? If they can't get together, okay, because I guess it's Steve who has said, I just can't work with John ever again. And he isn't even cutting him down or anything. It's the energies. They don't match. And I guess Steve is at a point in his life that what comes from John is a little intolerable right now for him to deal with. And there's always been a control for headship, who makes the main ideas, who gets inspired the most for the next project, or John often, somebody will come up with a great idea and he comes in and tries to bend it. You know, that's kind of what happened with 90125. They had half that album recorded, and then he came in, well, I got to put my thumbnail on it. And that's one of his geniuses that he has to offer. But I guess, like me, he can be hard to take in a room, you know? So that was another one. I talked about CCR, and I wasn't talking about Creedence Clearwater Revival. I was talking about Creedence Clearwater Revisited. That band should have stopped touring the second their first show was over. Okay? I don't need their new singer to do, and I don't even know if they're currently touring now, what their latest tour was. I know there's been a lot of stuff from Mark Farner who would like them to get back together, but he's just not going to. I think the biggest roadblock is the drummer, if I recall.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't want it. And Mark Farner told him, man, if we got together, then you guys would be making real Grand Funk money. And then Mark turned around to him and says, we are making Grand Funk money, which is the stupidest remark he could have come up with. You're not making Grand Funk money. Revisited. Read my freaking lips. You're not making Grand Funk money. If you would get together with Mark Farner, then you'd know what real money is all about, because people need one more tours right now, because we're in the very last years here. Things are going to start petering. Every year, more and more rockers die. All right, all three of you are alive. I don't give a damn about Greg Frost. I liked him as a trio. All right, he was okay. American Band was good, but I lost kind of faith with them after the American Band album. Didn't like where they were going, and then the covering of the Locomotion, which is a fine recording. It's just I already heard it from Carole King. Why would I want to hear that again? And that's, to me, it didn't quite sound like Grand Funk. It sounded like them trying to sound like something different. So I lost interest in them, and I would do my God, I know Mark Farner's got to be writing some new tunes. They could put out an album. Get your heads out of your asses And Mark, if you got to apologize for wanting more money than they did for that comeback tour, apologize. Salve the situation. But don't give them any more money. Don't concede or anything. Just take your fair share, because you already did the man a solid by giving him songwriting credits for the song American Band when you wrote it, Mark.
That's right, yeah.
Not him. Okay? Then that got me to the Doobie Brothers in this thing, and I said it, and I've said it many times. I was always a fan of the Doobie Brothers, not so much the Don't Be Brothers. Okay? And to me, the Doobie Brothers was with, Tommy at the helm. Okay? Tom Johnson. All right? And then I was already a fan of Jeff Skunk Baxter and Michael McDonald, because Skunk Baxter was actually an official Steely Dan member, and Michael McDonald was in for recordings and attached and everything, and I don't think they could find a permanent space for him, and plus they were about ready to start going whatever musicians on whatever album is the current Steely Dan. That's kind of the direction they went. But also I think Michael would have, if he had chosen to stay and they wanted him as a backing vocalist and a keyboard player, which he would have fit perfectly into that band. But I think he was also a songwriter. He wanted his material, and he got his opportunity with the Doobie Brothers when Tommy had to leave due to ulcers. He had ulcers. He had to quit, And then they took over, and I liked them well enough. I call them the Don't Be Brothers just to be cheeky, but I liked them well enough. All right, they were making new material. All right, it wasn't quite as good as, China Grove and stuff like that, but it keeps you running. We had a good groove, and I love the band. Jeff Skunk Baxter always liked his approach and everything. But it was never quite what they had before. Yeah,
Ben Shiger just came into the chat with a $10.
Oh my goodness! I see that. $10.
Ben,
thank you, Ben.
So much. It's
Talking
good to
about
see
one
you
of our
here.
younger members.
Yeah, and it's good to see him here.
Ben is young enough to be my youngest son.
Yeah.
From what I can tell.
Yeah.
My youngest son. I have a daughter. Let's see. She's well into her 50s. I've got 2 sons that are 4 sons, if you include my stepsons, Kimberly's sons, that are well into their 40s, right?
Yep.
And Ben's so young. Could you read what he has to say here, baby?
Ben says all pop and rap crap artists need to retire.
Yeah.
He says music studios should then provide subsidies for upcoming rock bands. I learned how to play. Is there anybody out there by Pink Floyd on guitar, by the way? Wow. Oh, that's so awesome, Ben.
That's awesome.
Besides being an intern, still in college, that's awesome. I can't, I agree that when you learn when you learn
trade?
What's the word?
A trade?
When you learn
a skill?
any instrument, instrument,
okay.
It does. It increases your brain power. It does. It opens up new pathways. That's so awesome, Ben.
I taught 2 of my children how to play guitar, and I taught Kimberly. Kimberly was actually doing very well, and then she gave it up. She didn't like the fact. It gets down to this, baby. Come on, you admit it on live air. You couldn't grow your nails like you like your nails long.
No.
You didn't want those short nails on your left hand, right?
No, it was because I got pregnant, remember? And I always have a lot of throwing up and stuff, and I felt really ill. So I really,
and then we got busy. I can
keep
see
it up,
that.
and then
She was one of the fastest learning students I ever had.
I loved it.
She took to it like a duck to water. I swear to God.
Yeah, I
Lots
loved it.
of innate talent there.
So that is great, Ben.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work.
Absolutely. And I'm glad to hear and heartened to hear from someone so young who can see, and takes the stand.
Enjoys it.
Rap crap, get rid of that stuff. Why not?
But that's a good
Let's
idea
have an
to
attitude
subsidize, the band thereafter.
Yeah. I kind of look at rap, it's like you're in a gang. You know, you got your classic rock game.
Yeah.
Then you got the rappers over there, and then the hip hop guys over there,
Hun,
jazz guys over there. We can take them all on.
Nestor Danilo Tamayo says, if we made our own band, Michael and Kimberly, we could call ourselves the Awesome Bottom Line Tribe.
There you go.
Woohoo!
The
Nestor,
ABLT.
we're awesome
The
because of all the
ABLT
wonderful,
or
incredible tribesmen.
ABLT.
Yeah.
We'd be first band to ever be called, you know, BLT.
BLT, yeah. We're the BLT band.
And we give away free BLT sandwiches at every concert.
Yeah.
I can see.
Then we'd
I can
go
see how we
broke.
could do this. We could promote this whole idea, right? Another band that I talked about. Oh, but I've changed my mind about the Doobie Brothers, mainly because, you know, for a long time it seemed like whatever version was coming out, they'd put out an album, but the material wasn't all that hot. And so they would just come out and they'd keep doing the songs, whether that was with Michael McDonald or when Tom came back in and they were playing all the places. I almost got to see him. And yes, I would have gone to see that version of the Doobie Brothers just do their hits. So my hypocrisy knows no bounds. I understand that. We came close to go seeing them up in wine country, baby.
Yeah.
Remember back in the day?
Yeah.
Almost did it. Something came out. I think I was scheduled at work on that day, and I couldn't get it off. So I like it, but they've got a brand new album out, and it's fantastic. And guess what? It's the Don't Be Brothers. You've got
Don't
Michael
Be
McDonald,
Brothers.
Tom Johnson, Pat Simmons in there, and the other guy, I forget his name, who kind of came in late and everything. But if you got those three are responsible. I wish they had their old bass player. What was his name? The black gentleman.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just not thinking of it.
Yeah.
And he'd always get one song aside, you know?
Yeah,
And I loved
yeah.
his stuff.
Yeah.
I showed you a couple of
Yep.
cuts a couple of weeks ago by him. And he's just not coming to mind. I wish they had him.
John
Porter?
McKee?
Porter
No.
seems to come.
Oh, Tyron Porter?
Ah, that's it. Thank you.
Scott Walters.
Tyron
thank
Porter.
you.
Tyron Porter. Thank you. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Thank
you, Scott.
Oh, I loved his groove, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Tyron Porter. I always missed him. So when he was gone, it was like, oh, man. But if you've got those three, you've got 3 out of the 4 writers that I respected the most out of them. Okay? And the album, I've reviewed the album here on the channel. It's great. So I've changed my mind. They're back to making music. So disregard that part of the video when you go see it. Fleetwood Mac. Okay. Oh, God. Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac. What are we going to do with Fleetwood Mac? Okay. My problems with Fleetwood Mac started with the Say You Will album. I bought it. I praised its strengths to my wife. Played it for, a year? Constantly. We were on Middle Lincoln Road, baby.
Yeah.
Even had the DVD, the making of the album, right? And so I know a lot about what happened there. And first of all, when they got together, it was all lovey-dovey, kissy-poo. We made up, I love this about Lindsay from Stevie. And Lindsay goes, oh, yeah, it was me and Stevie. And you always think, yeah, you jump back on those bones the second you got a chance. I don't think he's ever fallen out of love with her. There's no accounting for taste, Lindsay. All right? But when they got in, see, this is the psyche of Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
When she would meet with the rest of Mac, she had to have her freaking personal assistant, her girl pal gal.
Yeah.
There the whole time.
Well,
and you even get to the point where the girl pal gal goes, every guy on the planet knows you don't get out-teamed and outgunned by women. You don't let them congregate to get an opinion. And if Stevie's going to have an opinion, let her come up with it by herself. Or if she hasn't got the guts to stand toe-to-toe with Lindsay, she shouldn't have to get it from her gal pal Friday. All right, and then she, with that little bit of kind of fake, false courage, she then puts an end to their producer and co-songwriter of the band's plans to make a double album. Bad move. Yeah,
Dr.
go ahead.
Insomnia calls it Fleetwood Nag.
Yeah.
A Fleetwood Nag.
Yeah.
Oh dear, that's funny.
Or
That's
Fleetwood
funny,
Hag. Yeah. If we're talking about Stevie. Now, I love Stevie, her best work. I even like some of her early solo stuff. I'm not cutting her down as an artist. Again, like Don Henley, I just don't care for the gal. She is a
A groupie.
she is a shit starter from behind the scenes, you know. And she was sitting there talking to the interviewer. What Lindsay doesn't understand is there's most of our audience isn't kids on the rug reading over liner notes anymore. We can't afford to put out a double album. Why the fuck would you care, woman? All right, aren't you in it to put out the best freaking product ever? Wasn't he right about Tusk in the end? Tusk is one of those albums that got a
Yep.
black eye at first, and now
Yep.
everybody sings its praises. Wouldn't you listen to the man who developed the whole sound of that band? All right, he didn't just match you and Christine in songwriting ability, but he's one of rock's greatest guitarists, and he's one of rock's best producers. You had one of rock's best producers telling you, I see, but no, then you got Rick from the bald-headed executive producer that's been on so many albums. I forget his name. He's kind of bald-headed now, but his hair starts
Rick
about back here,
Wakeman?
probably where mine will eventually go. And then it's real long, and he's got a droopy mustache. He comes in on the Say You Will thing, and he's going, yes, I really dig it. And then he gives the bad news, okay, here's what we're going to do.
God.
So, both Christine and Stevie and Lindsay had to have their own guys mix their songs. I mean, this isn't a band co-creating together. This is a band putting out product despite the fact that they can't co-create together anymore. And then years later, Buckingham puts out an album called Buckingham McVie, or McVie put out an album called Buckingham McVie. Take your choice. And every member of Fleetwood Mac is on that album with the exception of Stevie. Just like Say You Will has every member of Fleetwood Mac on it with the exception of Christine. Why isn't Buckingham and McVie a Fleetwood Mac canonized album? It should be. Yeah, baby.
Oh, Casey Walters said, funny
Hey, Casey.
story. My mom actually saw Stevie Nicks in Chicago, and she said the concert she went to, Stevie was crying and freaking out for minutes on end because some audience member took her bracelet. Oh
my
my
God.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Well, was it one of those, healing Oh, yes, I got it from a mystical man or whatever. My goodness. Yeah. Well, and then on top of that, she said it's him or it's me with the rest of the band. They kicked out Buckingham. I was disappointed in Christine and Mick and John for not standing up to her. But I guess for whatever reason, they thought, well, she's the main draw. And in many people's eyes, I guess she is. She always takes center stage, with Lindsay and Christine off to the side. They're all to the front.
Yeah.
But she kind of gets the center stage spot. She's the cutie doll, or at least she used to be. But she got him kicked out, and I've hated her ever since. I had my reservations
Oh, dear.
before with Say You Will. But once she got him kicked out, and now they're making Nicey Nice because they released the Buckingham Nicks album, re-released it, and it's doing real well. A lot of people are saying, hey, that sounds kind of like Fleetwood Mac. And so they sent Valentines to each other through the internet. Kissy, kissy, make up.
Oh, my
Watch
goodness.
yourself, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Watch yourself.
Yeah.
I can almost feel a trap. She's like a Venus flytrap, brother.
Oh,
Watch
dear.
out.
Yeah.
Watch out. Watch out.
Well,
but there
women
is
tend to
talk
play
that
games,
they could
yeah.
do another tour. Now, I know Lindsay is finishing up on a solo album. If he brought her in to finish up on it, add a couple of her tracks, took off a couple of his, and toured that, I'd be all for even going to see Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham.
Caitlin said Lindsay is in the hospital.
Who?
Caitlin said Lindsay is in the hospital.
Oh, I hadn't heard.
Wow, I
I just checked news sources today.
Wow,
is this brand new, Caitlin?
Wow.
Did this just happen? Is this a brand new happening? What do you know? Look for her response. I want to know.
Yeah.
Lindsay is one of my heroes in rock.
Yeah, he's great.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
But if he gets past this, okay, I don't know what he's in the hospital for, and they actually did that because there's talk and hints, then I would take them off this list as well from 4 years ago. We talked about Black Sabbath. We talked about Yes.
Caitlin said today, and she said, I don't think it is a prank, considering that it's April Fool's Day.
Yeah, I know he's had medical issues.
Oh, that's too bad. Oh, I guess Steve McGeaney says Lindsey Buckingham got attacked by a stalker. Oh, my God.
Oh, Jesus, holy shades of
I
George
hope he's
Harrison.
okay.
Are you kidding me? See, here's another reason why you want to be on the live stream, folks. We get this kind of information updated from the tribe all the time.
A crazy-ass fan. That's what Scott Walters said. A crazy...
Did they get the guy?
Here in California. Of course it has to be California. The
Don't
most
get me started
liberal,
about California.
dumb state.
Okay,
crazy.
baby. No, don't.
Oh, man.
Don't go there. But...
probably was a person from San Francisco.
He was doused.
Oh my God! The stalker dropped drugs on him.
Oh Jesus!
Caitlin said, "Oh my goodness."
He was dosed.
Dosed or dropped?
Well, I read doused, and then he said the stalker dropped drugs on him.
Wow, that's
wow. Now, Beast.
Well, Beast
it's not
is
insane.
Right.
It's just terminally ill.
Yeah, especially with what's his name, governor. I don't even like to say his name.
No. We're not talking that shit here. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I've got plenty of people here who love the way the state of California is being run.
Threw substances
and I don't want to
him.
disrespect their political views.
They threw substances on him, some kind of chemicals or something.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh my God! If it isn't John Lennon, it's crazy. There's crazy. Ever since they stopped the state mental hospitals, we have these insane mentally ill people doing things that are
right. And it was a Republican
attacking,
and it was a Republican that did that, and I wasn't happy with that.
Oh, you can't
every Democratic mayor since then, I can speak about this because I work for the state hospitals. I took care of the people we're talking about right here. That was my job for a quarter of a century, folks. And when Reagan started shutting down the state hospitals, I watched them all go. They started opening these homes and then believing that these clients were now in business for themselves and set it down. Then they shut the hospitals down, and then the things that replaced them all went by the wayside by a lot of them. It hurt our mentally ill. It hurt our most fragile citizens of this state. And they're all living out on the streets. It's sad. Yeah.
Caitlin says Fleetwood Mac alum Lindsey Buckingham was reportedly attacked in Santa Monica by a woman suspected of stalking him. Oh my goodness.
There's no reports that it was Stevie? Just kidding. Just a little humor to kind of salve this. This is a
don't say that. Now you just stoked the fire.
I knew I'd get you, my little pretty.
Well, she better be at the hospital to make sure he's okay.
Well, the way they're practically making love online, I would imagine she's at his bedside right now. Please don't die. I need one more tour out of you. I don't know. Man, wow, this is crazy. I'm reacting in the here and now, folks. So if I'm being a little bit,
well, it's insane,
disrespectful here. I often, it's like one of those things. What was it, John Lennon? Those deer in the headlight eyes of John Lennon and George Harrison when they heard about Brian Epstein passing. I just feel like that. Yeah, well, I don't know what to
Well,
say.
apparently, Dalek Shalom says the woman is known to Buckingham. She's had past incidents. Law enforcement sources said.
Yeah,
She's done
and
past
this
things.
is I have no trouble saying this. This is part of the problem that I had to deal with. The homeless is part of the problem that was a result of that, or at least a portion, a goodly portion. How you like that,
Can
Brandon?
you believe? Of course.
That caused that, and this is what's happening. When the police do know,
Yeah,
the courts just release
the
them
woman
right
wasn't-
and left. There's no such thing as paying the price for what you've done.
Apparently, the woman at the time wasn't taken into. She still hasn't been. As of the publication, hasn't been taken into custody.
Still.
Oh my God, that's California for you.
Are you kidding
They
me?
plan to make an arrest. Oh, you have to plan to arrest somebody, huh?
Right.
Except you get pulled over for a ticket, you say the wrong thing, and you are immediately taken into custody.
Well, you're talking about the same law enforcement system that were fooled by a small glove in O.J. Simpson.
Oh yeah, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Yeah, that wonderful piece of stupidity. Oh my God.
Couldn't be that was the only pairs that were readily available, and he was just in a big hunger to get over there and do
just like
in
now
the cold.
with Tyler Robinson having killed Charlie Kirk, they're saying if the gun doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Yeah.
Because the gun doesn't fit.
Okay, so now we're getting a little
Oh, Michael Boswell just
too
showed
close.
up.
Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Hi, Michael.
As a matter of fact, Michael, you got me repeating my consolidation of, or my giving in to actually seeing some worth on Avatar shows, because we went through the Big Ten that the 10 deadly sins against rock and roll. And I mentioned that I thought Avatar shows were fine to a degree. That's all based on our last conversation. And as a matter of fact, folks, all those super thanks I shouted out at the end, so many of them were from Michael. He was hammering me right and left on Sunday, wasn't he?
Michael takes you to task, and that's great.
And he just kept making his point, and I finally said, okay, so here it is, folks. Here's what I believe. Then here's what Michael believes. Let us know. And we started taking in what you guys thought about, that whole situation. But we've been talking, Michael, about a video I made 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years on the 19th. Regarding rock bands that need to retire. And we've been going over a list here of rock bands that I felt needed to retire, and which one of those rock bands from 4 years ago have I changed my mind on. And there's been a few here on this list that I've changed my mind on. I want to make sure if I've gone over this entire list, because something tells me I got only part way down. Yeah, Genesis was another band. At the time I was criticizing them. I knew that Phil Collins was rather feeble on their last tour. They toured with him in a chair. I made lots of comments about that. All right, that he couldn't play his own instrument. His 20-year-old son was doing that for him. And he'd sit in a chair and he'd sing, and his voice was pretty good. And I even said in that video, I might even consider dropping a couple of $100 to see that, even with him in a chair. It's all about the music, stupid. But at the same time, him being in a chair and not playing the instrument, I mean, he's one of rock's best drummers, often on rock's top 20 list at least of drummers, and his influence is undeniable, and we weren't getting that, so we weren't getting a full show. If they were to come out these days, I would avoid it like the plague. From what I understand, Phil Collins is in not good shape, and I'm not sure he could even dream about retouring with them and any other incarnation unless we got those two mixed in with all of a sudden energized Peter Gabriel. Maybe I'd have to see what they were going to do, and if they were going to do new music to make the tour worth it. Queen, they're not currently touring. I haven't heard that they're currently touring. with Adam Lambert and everything else like that. But they're always threatening to do that. I mentioned the movie Bohemian Rhapsody that I said should have been renamed the Freddie Mercury story. I saw so many holes in that. Plus, I also mentioned in that video, I wasn't as much of a Paul Rogers fan I am. He's one of my favorite vocalists. Definitely in my top 3 or 4. Okay? Definitely in my top 3 or 4. I wasn't interested in what he was doing with Queen. I didn't want to hear Paul Rogers sing Queen. That's for Freddie. I felt when Freddie passed away, they needed to, whoever was left in the band that still wanted to do something, make a new band, start writing material. But that's not what they did. They became a traveling jukebox, a parody of themselves. And I was such a major Queen fan. I said in the past, I actually used to have dreams of meeting them in the studio. That would be my ultimate thing. I never dreamed about meeting John or Paul or Steve Howe from Yes or John Anderson from Yes, you know, or Richie Blackmore. I dreamed about meeting all 4 members of Queen. That they were such a major band for me, right? And then, of course, we talked about the Eagles earlier on, but this was another one with them touring with Don Henley, lip syncing. It's no longer a true live performance. I think live performances need to be live performances, or in all deference to Michael that's out there, I can already hear him typing furiously on this.
Well,
I will say this. Let me finish my thought, and then I'll
yeah.
ask you what you're saying here, babe. But if that's what people want, then there has to be a disclaimer. This show is not 100% live. Then all takers, you know, every fool knows how to waste money. And if you want to go and do that, that's fine. That's not a live show to me at all, and it takes away. You want to see something like that? Then, Michael, then I see, hey, how about an Avatar show? Now we can get perfection, and it's a Disney ride. I stood in line for hours and hours and hours to get on Pirates of the Caribbean, and then I turned around and stood hours and hours and hours, did it again, and then turned around hours and hours. You know what I'm saying? I'm all for a good ride, and if it's a good send-off to classic rock on top of that, okay. But it shouldn't take over live theater, and live theater should be always live. All right, what are we going to do next? You go to the theater to watch a play, and we're going to get 3D actors now? Why would that be cool? Michael's going, really? Have you heard anything about that? Right, Michael? Okay, and then finally, I've covered a whole lot about Paul McCartney. This is the guy I wanted to talk about here at the end more than anything, and that is Paul McCartney, who I have heavily criticized his voice live.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my goodness! I saw that too.
Michael Boswell has
thank you.
something to say. Oh, thank you, Michael.
Read this, because he's got a whole list.
Yes, read this. Okay, he says, Michael Boswell says, retired David Lee Roth, AC/DC, Kiss, Paul McCartney, Heart. I agree with a disclaimer, including tribute band.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael.
David Lee Roth, we talked a whole lot about why he needs to go. AC/DC, you know, the thing is, I'm seeing good concerts, and their last album was great, but then I'm seeing the bad concerts, and my mind immediately goes over to, are the good concerts, with backing tracks? Because the good concerts are so much better than the bad concerts, and they're all fairly recent, within the last couple of years. So maybe Michael knows more about that. Heart, I agree. Disclaimer, including tribute bands. Yeah, and I've already mentioned Foreigner as the ultimate tribute band out there right now. Not a single member. They're not writing new material. When they have in the past, it's all been attached to, and this was true about Journey. Journey, we have Neil Schon being busted for playing lead guitar to a backing track. I covered that in a recent video. People are doing that. It's dishonest, And I know for a fact, I said this in my last video, I know for a freaking fact that a lot of you just don't care. You just want the best sound over those things, and you want a great light show, and you want to jiggle your ass until the cows come home to the hits sounding as close as they did, when in fact for the just a small portion of what people are paying for some of these artists, you could buy yourself an entire PA system and hook it up to your CD player and invite a bunch of friends over, and it'll sound just as good. Right? Charge admission.
Well,
Have a party.
Michael Boswell says, I would be fine with Foreigner and Journey adding a disclaimer, agreeing with Michael. There you go,
Yeah.
Michael B.
And I'm all for that, Michael. And that's by your input. A lot of what you've been saying over the last year, since I've been streaming just a little over a year. January 18th, man. I'm just a newbie in streaming, but a lot of your input has changed my mind about that and everything. You kind of got to give in to reality. People are going to pay to see what they're going to pay. And then when they really want to know a good reason why maybe paying that money and going to that concert isn't a good reason, you can always find me. I'll be out here giving you every reason to stop wasting your money on that. Buy your oldest daughter a car that's safe, because some of these prices are incredible. Paul McCartney charging as much, his record so far is $5,000 from his last tour here in North America, beat by Bruce Springsteen, who charged $8,000. Then I got a lot of criticism because the third-party sites were going to charge $22,000, but then they made this into a what do they call it? When you you have to bid for it, an auction or whatever, and you bid or you put your name in to see if you could get a ticket. And even then, I heard some content creators go, "Well, it was only $424, and I don't know who got for $424." When the average price of those tickets has since been reported as $1,200+, and a few tickets were sold on those third-party sites and went for as much as $6,000, beating his old record. I'm not sure that Paul has what it takes vocally to tour anymore, and he's the one guy I say he should retire and not retire. If he's going to tour, then start touring the songs that you can sing. Quit this nonsense. You can't replicate your vocals on Hey Jude anymore. Give that up. And if you do not want to do that, then quit touring, Paul, and become semi-retired and write some of the greatest music of your life, like you've done with the song Days We've Left Behind. What a wonderful song. I spent my entire last stream talking about that song. And one of the things, if you notice that song, is it starts with Paul today, then explaining how he got here. Then it starts a little bit earlier in time, explaining how that connects to today. And then he goes even earlier, right? Even earlier in his childhood. Backwards Traveler. Where have I heard that before? What a wonderful McCartney concept. All right, guys, we've been going for about an hour and 45 minutes, pretty close to that. I want to thank all of you for showing up for this stream. I knew I wouldn't get very many people. What do we got right now? 41. I'm surprised we got 41. We have a moon launch today. Didn't expect to see Dan in. And you know what? I thought about possibly canceling this stream because I'm big into astronomy myself. The last time we had such a launch, I was 14 years old, folks. And by the time I was 17, we never went back. I'm a 71-year-old man. That was a shame. And shame on every damn president who kept putting more stuff into our defense and everything. I'm all for
Oh,
keeping us
boy.
strong on defense. Don't get me wrong. But we needed to feed more into space exploration. So I haven't heard anything about that. Did it take off? Does anybody say, has it? It was supposed to go at 3 our time. So it must have launched or been canceled. There was inclement possible weather they were talking about. And then the president's going to make a statement to the nation tonight if he hasn't already started. So I knew I was streaming against big primetime elements today, but I don't care. I don't care. I'll stream under any conditions. And why? Just for you folks, the tribe. All right, I want to thank you. If you're a bunch of you are new members, this is the Tribal Forum. This is where I get to sit down and just chat with you guys. I also make dedicated videos that are more professionally done and driven and much more edited and to the point. A lot of you newer subscribers have come to the channel through those. This is a different aspect of it. It's me talking with you folks. Next time, if you didn't get into the conversation here, feel free. See these folks here? These are all cool people. I know 90% of these people, or know much about them as they have behaved on this channel. They're all cool people. We got a great group of people over here, and I want to thank each and every one of you for supporting the channel. Kimberly and I couldn't do it. Baby, you are spot on tonight. I appreciate your input.
Well, I was right because you are. I get most of my, I let you know when I have an opinion, but otherwise I pretty much agree with you, obviously. I wouldn't be married to you.
Yeah. Well, we don't agree on everything, and I like that about the fact.
You
know.
guys, this tribe is great.
Yeah.
They are family.
Yeah, oh no. No.
They
As a
are.
matter of fact, Dragon and I have been going back and forth.
Yeah.
Sent me a couple of messages, and he sent me a cartoon where this guy, let me see if I can do this justice. I won't get the name right, but it was, and you see this cartoon, there's of a man and his wife, I suppose, driving down the highway, listening to music. But at this point, the man's chair is above the car, and there's a hole punched in it. And the guy goes, it was at that moment that Frank, whoever he was, decided he had had enough after 37 minutes of listening to, what was it, pop radio or something like that, And I sent one of you guys a joke, Caitlin, and then I repeated it here, that I had heard. That reminded me of James Bond. So I think that goes to the old joke. James Bond actually didn't die in his last movie, baby.
Yep.
You know why?
Why?
He was merely shaken, not stirred.
Oh, okay. That's
See what you do to me, Dragon?
That, yeah.
See what you... And then he sent another one with the band Kansas talking about Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. And she's behind the door, peeking in, and they're all complaining. She can't get the lyrics to Dust in the Wind, and Carry On Wayward Son sounds crappy, right? So I sent him back a thing. I go, well, that's okay. I hear she got lead vocals for the rock band Dorothy, and her dog joined Toto.
Oh.
See
Naturally.
the sick people that follow me?
Yeah.
They're as sick as I am, baby. That's why
Oh
we
my
love
God.
each other so much.
God, sometimes I think we're the only sane people here at the tribe. We make sense.
Yeah.
We have common sense. We have commonality.
What's that? Common sense. Now, I thought that there thing you call common sense died with the dinosaur.
Yeah.
Wiped out by an asteroid, I hear.
Yeah, one college gal was asked what the capital of America is. She said Venezuela. The capital of America is Venezuela.
I'll tell you, you
my
watch
God.
those
This
YouTube.
is a college girl.
I know. I've watched so many of those asking people at university, what are the 7 continents? Or
Yeah.
on what hemisphere is America?
Yeah, I know.
Or just dumb stuff that you would think
Yeah.
that would go. Can you point to Israel on the map? Or can you point to actual Iran on the map?
I know.
Yeah. Oh, hell. Some of them can't point to England.
Well, they're completely in the wrong geographical,
Well, they quit teaching, reading, writing, and arithmetic, Wilma.
I know.
It's
I
that
know.
arithmetic and
It is scary. Caitlin said, these are the future leaders. Oh, my God.
well, and then you wonder why, we continue to make the mistakes we do. I just sent this message to Royce. Those who refuse to learn from history
That's
are
it.
doomed to repeat it every single
And
time.
those that aren't taught history have no clue.
Repeat it. Because,
No
see,
clue.
history, like any other inanimate object, develops a personality. And history's personality is to repeat itself as often as possible unless we get a clue and stop that nonsense. You got to stop that nonsense. Quit
Yeah.
making the same old damn mistakes. Generation after generation.
Uh-oh. Michael Boswell has something to say again.
Uh-oh. What did he have to say?
Michael says he came in with a deuce hammer, and he says, you and I agree more times than we disagree.
I know. Well, and we do, Michael. But I kind of teasing you because Sunday, man, you were taking me to task. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
It's like I finally had to say, okay, so here's what's going on.
That's what makes
Here's
it
what
fun.
I believe. Here's what Michael believes. And I think I kind of nailed what you believe pretty good. And then I just say, Kimberly, just read the comments. Let the tribe decide.
Yeah.
See, I don't have to be right. I don't care if anybody agrees with me. It works for me, folks. I don't give a shit if you agree with me or not.
Yeah.
But I'd like you to at least have respect, consider what I've said, and then go to town. Tell me how wrong I am. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care. I haven't got everything figured out. If
That's
I
right.
did, I'd be living on a mansion up in the hills, worth about $2 quadrillion, and figured a way to take it with me.
Yeah. Away from the insanity. Yeah.
But that's what I always say. All these rockers working for money. Guess what, folks? They're not taking 1 red cent with them more than you are. Keep that in mind. All right, so we don't just let them get away with anything, and we don't just pay anything to watch them. There has to be a loyalty to the fans, and I want to see more of these bands get hungry again. Become recording artists. You need to make art more than you need to make money. It doesn't matter if the album sells well like it used to in your heyday. Is it a good piece of art? Wouldn't you want that out? Leonardo da Vinci, the Mona Lisa. It's not the only thing he painted. Okay? And from what I'm seeing with Paul McCartney, oh God, I'm hoping this album. I said it in one of my latest streams. Give us just 13 more. It's in my latest short, but it's from my last stream. Just give us 13 more songs on this album that is anywhere near as good as this, Paul. And you've done the impossible. You'll be the first 84-year-old rock and roller to make and create a masterpiece. One more masterpiece, Paul. We need it.
Vag Pantry says, Pantry. Okay. Preach, Michael, preach. Oh, my goodness.
And so a lot of the folks who turn into these streams, they go, I don't agree with a damn thing the man says, Wilma. I just like the man to go off and rant, make a fool out of himself. I'm here to appreciate his downfall when it finally happens. Well, hold your breath, brother. I've had so many downfalls. I'm kind of waiting for the next downfall myself. You never know. I didn't say I had figured it out.
Oh.
I said I've figured out kind of, sort of what works for me. And sometimes I'm smart enough to follow my own advice. And sometimes I'm not. I'm so dumb. It's like I have to make a certain mistake, yes, for the 14th time. I'm like everybody else, We're a work in progress until we're no longer a work. Yeah, baby.
Oh, No, I was just.
Oh, she had her hands up, and I thought she was trying to get my attention.
No.
Yeah, all right,
No.
No, she was looking at one of your comments, going, "Oh."
No.
Right?
Yeah.
You go, whatever floats your
Rockin'
boat,
Robin Bird
Nolan.
said something interesting. She says, I was waiting for someone to mention Angine de Portrine. I really like them. They are doing something unique and new.
I
Ooh,
need
that
to look that
sounds
up. I saw your comment on them earlier. What was that? That was on another. Was that on the last stream or was it on one of my latest videos?
Yeah.
But I remember you bringing this up, Rockin', and I need to look into it.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
matter of fact, baby,
Screenshot, huh?
Yeah, I'll do a screenshot right here.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I want to look that up. I'm glad you brought that up before I closed off here, Rockin'. You guys always give me good ideas, and you've turned me on to some great music I haven't heard.
We'll
you
check
know?
that out for sure.
Yeah, and it's all a share. It's all a share. You know, because we're the cool kids. We're the cool kids, man. We got the best gang. It don't matter if some bad cats from 4th Street come nosing up our alley. Because we'll say it's cool, but just stay away from me and my boys, because eyes clash, claws slash, and green-eyed fur goes flying.
Yeah.
Midnight, cat fight, die.
Okay.
Oh! Okay, I'm feeling much better. Got my Alice Cooper out of me. How'd you like them apples?
Get your freak on,
Caitlin?
huh, hon?
That was for you, sweetheart.
Yeah. Get your freak on.
One of my favorite bands, my last video on him got like 11,000 views. It was quite popular. If you guys haven't seen that, it's a good video. All right, folks, I know we've hit the 2-hour mark by now, or at least by the time I click that cease and desist order that's built into my phone, we will have gone 2 hours. And like I said, on Wednesdays, I'm in no hurry. We can change it. We'll get back to the main topic in about a half hour from now, because now we're going to go over and talk about what you guys want to talk about. Prayers and thoughts to Lindsey Buckingham. Hope all is going for him. If you just joined in, some of the tribal members have said that he's in hospital, that he was assaulted by
a
drug
woman
sprayed
in Santa Monica who has been previously tried to do things. She was a stalker of Lindsey Buckingham.
Yeah.
Good gracious.
So, and that's something that happened live on the air here, and so I'll be checking that out. If there's a video in it, I'll be making a video on that in the next couple of days. I want to take a look at it, see if there's another portion of the story.
What's going on, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like to just report on articles or a news item. I like to find something that grabs that we've all been talking about and see if I can weave the latest story into the story of rock. Remember, my main mission here is to procure the elements of classic rock, including 50s rock up to the latest bands, but the classic rock era sincerely from 1965 to 2005. And of course, we also go back with the blues, back to the 20s, the 10s, the 1810s, the 1776 blues hits that our forefathers all knew,
Yeah.
Yeah, baby, by dawn's early light, that our flag was still there. I got them 1776
Okay,
blues.
here he goes again.
I know. What are you going to do? Well, you always leave them with a little bit of song, a little bit of dancing,
Yeah. You're silly. You're
I know,
just
I'm nuts.
plain silly.
Well, I get past hour 2 and I go crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, you got to get it pretty early in the morning to fool Michael.
Well, or at least that's my story, darling, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, according to
Okay.
me, I'm right all the time. All right, folks, I enjoyed this a whole lot. This is, I've been really enjoying these streams. Every one for like 10 in a row now.
Yeah, it renews the spirit.
Yeah.
It does, because we just have the most wonderful people.
Yeah, and babe, we're older now, and I am anyway. You're still
Yes. Speak for yourself.
She was a mail-ordered child bride. I had to keep my hands off for 2 decades before I could touch it.
Male bride my A.
But you know, it's good for us to stay in contact. You guys right now, and I know a lot of you are older folks, and I want to thank our younger viewers.
Except for Ben.
You know, it doesn't matter your age,
Scheidegger.
man. It's what we love.
He's got wisdom if he's listening to us old folks, boy.
Well, you know, the smartest kids in any given era of high school always discovered 2 bands.
Yep.
The Beatles and Led Zeppelin,
Oh,
at
yeah.
least, and Pink
Oh,
Floyd
yeah.
often.
Yeah,
right?
and then they keep going.
And then they go, oh,
yeah.
you know,
yes,
the
Queen,
Stones, you know,
yeah.
Who, you know. But
Rush.
those 2 bands, they re-up, you know, it's like they have this constant supply of new people. Oh, yeah, you know. They find out, you know, the cool kids in high school go, you know, usually 15, 16-year-old boys, you know, they don't quite dance to the tune that the hip-hop kids and the rap kids are going, you know, that's noise. And they go, ooh, here's what's really cool. And then they become the expert choking smokers in their homeroom. And for you guys, that's where our hopes and our dreams and our aspirations, as we pass on this mortal coil, it's going to be you younger folks that will keep the spirit of rock and roll alive. Aww. The rest of us may not always thrive, but rock and roll must stay alive. I can't get any better now. I think I'm just gonna say goodnight. Good night, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
She got it. She got it.
Yeah, I thought I'd throw you for a loop.
Yeah. We're the George and Gracie of the internet, darling.
God,
did you know that?
Hon, we're nuts.
Well, I better get going now.
But we're the good kind of nuts.
Gotta go rearrange heaven.
We're not the crazy kind of nuts. We're the good kind of nuts. You know,
well,
mixed bag.
Yeah.
Papa's got a brand new bag.
I'm the one who's got a whole lot of nuts. Kimberly, don't. That Nolan, he's full of nuts. But Kimberly won't. All right, folks.
Okay,
good night.
Everybody. Good night.
Sayonara. See you on Sunday.
Yes, we'll see you Sunday.
I love this, guys. You were wonderful.
I know.
Thanks
I love
for
the try.
hanging out with us.
Yep. Blessings.
Blessings, yes.